Today, an application was submitted to initiate a case before the European Court of Human Rights. The application submitted under Article 34 of the European Convention on Human Rights was submitted on behalf of the two NGOs, Egyptians Abroad for Democracy and Code Pink. The application was submitted in order to raise alleged violations of rights under the European Convention, violations caused by the manner in which a criminal complaint submitted in France in 2022 by the two NGOs was handled and decided upon by France. It was filed with the support as well. For example, the group Egypt's Hope has expressed support for the application, as it also did when the NGOs raised evidence of crimes under Operation Sirleaf in France in September of 2022. The background to this application to the European Court of Human Rights is the criminal complaint submitted by the two NGOs in September 2022. The criminal complaint, submitted in France under the principle of universal jurisdiction, raised evidence of targeted attacks which killed and injured civilians in areas of Western France along the border of Libya, which were committed during the course of a security and intelligence operation between Egypt and France, known as Operation Sirleaf. The complaint submitted in 2022 was with France's specialized prosecutor on crimes against humanity, raised evidence of crimes against humanity committed by Egyptian officials, crimes of torture committed by Egyptian officials, and complicity in crimes against humanity by French officials. It requested that the French prosecutor open an investigation, and for this investigation to examine all potential perpetrators with a view to prosecuting. In December 2022, the specialized prosecutor decided not to open an investigation into the alleged crimes. The NGOs used the only available mechanism for challenging this decision and escalated to the French general prosecutor. But the general prosecutor affirmed the decision not to investigate in October 2023. With no other available remedy to challenge the decision not to prosecute, the NGOs have looked to the European Court of Human Rights in order to raise the impact of this process and the rights under the convention that are violated. To be clear, for this case, the European Court will not review the evidence of crimes committed during Operation Sirleaf and make a decision for itself on whether human rights violations or crimes were committed by Egyptian officials with France's assistance. Instead, what the European Court is tasked to do is to review the procedure by which universal jurisdiction applications are reviewed, considered, and decided upon from this perspective of whether this process is sufficient in providing access to justice, the right to a remedy, and a reasonable and effective mechanism for finding the truth. The application raises two particular aspects which give rise to the alleged violations of the European Convention. This includes the following. First, France's failure to open an investigation. And second, the French domestic system's lack of an effective remedy by which an independent and impartial judicial mechanism can effectively adjudicate the criminal complaint and provide access to a court to review and challenge any decision made. The application submits that because of this, 3 rights under the European Convention were violated, which impacted the NGO's ability to raise the case on behalf of victims. This includes Article 2, the right to life, Article 6, the right to a fair trial, and Article 13, the right to a remedy, all of these under the European Convention. Now, to explain the allegation under each of these rights. First, it's alleged that there was a violation of Article 2, the right to life. Under the right to life, there is not only an obligation for states like France to protect life, but also a procedural obligation to investigate any violations of this right, to investigate any killings. The application alleges that France violated this procedural obligation under Article 2 to carry out an effective investigation into evidence of killings of civilians by state officials, including the potential complicity of its own officials in France to these killings, and that right was violated when France declined to take any investigative steps. Second, it's alleged that both Article 2, the right to life, and Article 13, the right to an effective remedy, were violated. Both rights carry an obligation for states to not only investigate, but also to have an available mechanism for adjudication, which allows for an impartial and independent tribunal to review a decision by a prosecutor. The process in France does not provide access to a court. Instead, all power to decide on whether an investigation into international crimes is held, whether an investigation into international crimes is carried out and conducted, and all of that power to make the decision is held with the prosecutor's office. Therefore, it's alleged that France failed to have in place an effective and independent judicial system to provide a sufficient remedy as is required under these two rights. Last, the application alleged a breach of Article 6, the right to a fair trial. Now, under Article 6, there are rights that are carried in criminal proceedings, but also civil rights as well, which carry the right to reparations. And it's been widely accepted that the right to the truth is a recognized form of a reparation, and that an investigation to find the truth is integral to this. Therefore, it's alleged that France failed to ensure the civil rights that are associated with Article 6 to reparations, and namely the right to the truth as a recognized form of a reparation, by failing to carry out an effective investigation. Because of these three alleged violations, France failed to meet its obligations under the Convention and violated rights under the Convention which directly impacted the applicants. Now, it's accepted that this case involves very legal submissions and must focus on issues regarding access to justice rather than directly confronting the evidence of crimes and violations themselves. However, these questions are still very important to justice for the victims of Operation Sirley. These rights concerning an effective remedy, access to an investigation, and the right to the truth are fundamental principles that are key to the rule of law. Without them, the ability to achieve accountability and justice for serious international crimes and for human rights violations is prevented. And that's exactly what has happened in France and what is alleged in this case. The key here is that effective, genuine, and transparent investigations must be carried out. And there must be judicial mechanisms in place which allow not only victims and those who, but also those who raise cases on their behalf to participate in this process and to also have the ability to challenge and review any adverse decisions before a court.